Actually want to begin our show with the fact that a new fiscal year begins next week, and Michigan lawmakers still have yet to reach a deal to get a budget onto Governor Gretchen Whitmer's desk. And political reporter Rick Albin joining us now with the latest. Rick, thank you so much for being here today.
Phil, thanks for having me.
Of course. And the current state budget actually expires at midnight next Tuesday, so really only a few days left before that September 30th day. There is no agreement in Lansing as of right now for a new spending plan. Where does that sort of leave us and really leave the state government right now?
Well, it leaves it scrambling because there are some really important things that have to happen for that budget to be put in place. And if you don't have it starting on October 1st, then spending is going to be curtailed. It isn't that there is no money left, but you don't have any authorization to spend money. So it will be a really interesting balancing act for agencies and others that depend on state government to go forward past October 1st. They can do it, but it's just going to take some oversight from the administration and also some idea of what's going on if there is no budget by midnight on Tuesday. So it really means that between now and then, lawmakers have a lot of work to do to live up to kind of their first and most important responsibility, and that is to get a new budget.
Right. No, and again, there are a few plans that have been floating around and are still floating around right now and really have been for quite some time. But do any of them really have traction? I mean, as we're talking on this Thursday?
Yeah, I don't think so, because this budget will be a negotiated package. So what passed the House is never going to pass in the Senate. What passed in the Senate is never going to pass in the House. And even if, for example, the House budget passed, or even if the Senate budget passed, it would still need some negotiation with the governor before she signed it. So I think that the realistic anticipation is that you're going to have to come up with a negotiated plan. But again, we point out the problem with that is you only have a short time to get it done. And there are so many tiny line items that are in that budget that it's not something you can just say, yeah, here's the dollars and cents figure. This is what we want. It's much more complex than that. It takes a lot of time. And it's not just time of lawmakers, it's staff. It's everybody that has to put it together. So this is truly getting down to crunch time, because you've got to have that voted on and to the governor before midnight on Tuesday, and that's a lot.
Definitely. And, we've heard from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle kind of talking about the holdup and what they're trying to fight for and everything. I mean, what really is the issue? Is there any one thing or maybe a couple of things that are true sticking points that is causing all of this delay?
Well, I think the one thing that you can always look to is divided government, because when you have Republicans in control of one body and Democrats in control of the other, getting a budget done is always much more difficult. And that's the case that we have right now. But beyond that, it's a difference of priorities, but not just that. It's also how much money do you want to spend? The House is probably between $3 and $4 billion less than what the Senate has called for, and the Senate's a little bit above what the governor had even called for. So it's the amount of money, and then of course it's where you spend that money. But maybe the biggest thing that's holding this up, and I shouldn't say it that way, maybe the one thing that can kind of break this loose would be if they could get an agreement on a roads plan. Now, the House put out a roads plan that pretty much meets the dollars figure that the governor wants, but it does it without raising revenue, meaning it shifts a lot of other revenues around. Certainly the Democrats in the Senate do not like that. Not sure where the governor is on that. I know she wants a roads plan. I don't know how much she will compromise to get it, but all of those things are sticking points to some degree or another. And because they haven't invited me into those rooms for those discussions, I don't know exactly where it is.
Well, and you of all people probably have been following this as closely as anybody else in the state of Michigan, and just hearing, like I said, from everybody kind of involved right now. And the way we're kind of talking about, and the way we've been sort of hearing all the different developments regarding this, it is leading to a lot of people thinking that there is a chance that we hit that deadline and nothing is on the table. But have you heard anything? Have you seen anything? Spoken to anybody that maybe gives some cause for some optimism that we hit that deadline and a budget has been passed, or at least presented?
Yeah, I think so. And part of that is just physically what's happening. So normally the legislature meets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's most weeks. And So this week, they've extended the session dates to Friday, and they've included Monday of next week. So that means you've got the remainder of the day today. The House went in at 10 o'clock. Normally, they wouldn't go until 1:30. They'll be in at 10 o'clock again tomorrow, and then they've got all day Monday and then Tuesday as well. Now, could they have session over the weekend? It certainly has happened in the past, but that's only if they have something to do, because first you have to come to an agreement. That's the most important thing. Once that's done, that's when there is so much work to be done. It has to be written. The boilerplate language is already in there, but you've got to put the dollars and cents figures, and those have to be right. They have to add up. You have to put the other language that pertains to where you're going to spend it and how you're going to spend it. So that could take, I don't know, 72 hours to get all of that done, which means that you have to get an agreement, and then you have to get it printed, and everything has to be right, and then you can vote on it. So the optimism that I see is that they're still counting on getting something done, or at least trying to get something done. I probably talked with, in the last 2 days, 20 people that have some knowledge of the budget, and I'd say they're pretty much evenly split. And by the way, that doesn't go along party lines. There's optimism and pessimism on both sides of the aisle. I tend to think that they can get something done, but it's going to happen really quickly. And as the hours click by, if we get to this time tomorrow and we haven't heard of a deal or seen a deal announced, I think it starts to get less and less likely they'll be done on time.
Definitely a sooner rather than later kind of thing that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. Rick, if, say, we do roll into Tuesday with no budget passed, where does that leave us?
Stay calm.
Yeah.
We've seen this before. And by the way, that would be the same deadline for the federal government. Just so you know, they passed a continuing resolution, but the Senate has not agreed with the House. So we could be facing a double partial shutdown. And I always refer to it as a partial shutdown because there will be core services that will not shut down. The last time that the state government shut down, I think the first thing that were closed were state campgrounds and roadside parks or rest areas. There were other things, and the longer it goes on, the more things that would happen. But in the initial aftermath, it probably would be more of a messaging type of thing than it would be a real serious matter in those first few hours. And it has in the past kind of resulted in an added urgency on the part of the legislature and governor to get something done. It's a bad look. Nobody wins when government shuts down, but lawmakers and the governor can certainly take the blame and spread it around between them. So I think that if we do get to that point, and right now I'm still mostly optimistic we will not. I think we're going to get really close, but I don't think we'll get there. But if we do get to that point, there will be guidance and some other things that can go on that will keep those core functions going, at least in the short term. And I think it would be short term if that comes to pass.
All right, well, let's hope that optimism is contagious to a lot of other people feeling it right now. Rick, we know it's going to be a busy couple of days for you, just keeping an eye on everything happening in Lansing. So we'll let you get back to it. But thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you.
Of course.